Yes, the recording has just started. So firstly, Aneta, maybe you can start sharing your presentation. And let me introduce the project.
We will start with Frederick.
Okay, so you don't have one presentation. I thought that you will be sharing both presentations. Okay, so let me introduce firstly the project coordinator of Climax. It's Frederick Sperna-Weiland. And the project coordinator will introduce you to the assumptions of the Climax project.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for attending our webinar. I will provide you with a brief introduction on the Climax project. And I'm Dr. Frederik Sperna-Weiland. I'm a senior specialist climate risk at Altaris. The Climax project is a Horizon Europe project, and it's part of the EU mission on adaptation. So the EU is funding us, but next to providing funding to us, they also provide funding to support regions to actually conduct their climate risk assessments. So in the past 1.5 years, we've been developing tools and a framework to conduct climate risk assessments. And it's been a challenging job. So we know that within Europe, we experience different types of hazards, droughts, floods, wildfires, heat waves. There are many different regions with different experience in climate risk assessments, but also with different climate risks. And of course, the availability of data to conduct a climate risk assessment varies from region to region. In some regions, the risk assessments conducted are already quite advanced. And in other regions, we are able to offer a whole new data set to start conducting the climate risk assessments. So we wanted to build something that can be applied in any European region. So Climax exists of 3 pillars, and I'll first introduce the first pillar, which is the framework for regional climate risk assessment. So a climate risk assessment starts with knowing your risk for the current climate. So what is your main risk? Is it flooding? Is it droughts? Is it wildfire? And after that, you start looking how this risk will change in the future. So you use different climate data sets, different climate scenarios, and you assess how the risk changes and whether it will get more severe. And if it gets more severe, then where you will experience the most problems. So we built up on climate risk assessment frameworks that already existed. So we connected to the European Environmental Assessment Agency. We took the good points from the IPCC risk propeller, and based on that, we established our functions to calculate climate risk. And as you know, that's a function of hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. So for each of these 3 components, we collected the relevant data sets and we've set up workflows. Well, this is the climate risk assessment framework. And later on, you can go to the online Climax handbook and you can really read through the framework step by step. But we wanted to ensure that what we established is an iterative climate risk assessment. So you first start assessing your risk, but you're also able to identify measures and adaptation options and to re-assess your risks. What we've figured out crucial, and which is actually quite nice because now we work with you as regions, is that a good climate risk assessment really relies on a participatory approach. So it relies on local knowledge of what kind of problems and what kind of vulnerabilities there are in the region. So that's key to the framework that we set up. And finally, you can see the pink outline or the outer circle. And these are actually the steps that connect to the climate risk assessment toolbox that we developed. So all is online available in handbook.climax.eu. The first project will likely start in October. So we're finalizing the last bits, but more or less everything is online at the moment. And this is what you get. So you get extra information and you're guided through the framework step by step. Well, the next pillar, so first we developed the framework, but we also developed the digital toolbox, which really helps you to work with climate data and climate workflows. And we set up customizable risk workflows, so you can start using what is available, but you can also add specific data sets for your region and extra formulas if you like. We try to make it accessible for different levels of expertise. So as there's a simple data viewer, but there's also quite some advanced coding that can be done by more the technical experts, or maybe some technical service you plan to hire. Yeah, in the end, if you develop very nice code in your project, we are happy to also receive that and to grow the toolbox together. Well, a short overview of the hazards included: different types of flooding, wildfire, heat waves, heavy precipitation, droughts, and snowstorms. So the toolbox is also part of the handbook. And there's one component, and it's the EU data viewer. And for example, this map is something you can click through, you can zoom in, and you can see the heat wave risks in different parts of Europe. And you can look at it for different RCPs and different future time horizons to get a first impression of the risk level in your region. And similarly, there are also maps for other hazards. Well, then there is the technically more advanced parts. We've set up notebooks, so you can access this code, you can download the code, but it's a pre-configured workflow in which you could actually only adjust your region of interest. And then, for example, in this floods workflow, derive a flood map for your region and assess the flood risk. So similarly, that's done for other hazards as well. And this requires some coding skills. Maybe to repeat, we connect to different existing EU data sets. So we get data from the Copernicus Climate Data Store that's hosted by ECMWF. They have climate indicators, they have hazard data sets, and most of it is either European or global coverage. And for the vulnerability data, we connect to the GRC Risk Data Hub. So not all data sets and workflows are established by the CLIMAAX project itself, but we take the best that's available out there and extend it with our own data sets. Some examples: Catalonia was a pilot region in our project, and they were kind of trying and testing the workflows, and they assessed how wildfire risk would change in the future, or they assessed first the wildfire risk for their region in the current conditions. And this maps helps them to depict the regions most at risk, and they're now doing the risk assessment for the future. And then there is Chilina in Slovakia. They have experienced quite some heat waves in the past. So they use the climate toolbox to assess how heat wave occurrence will change in the future and what they should be prepared for. So these are some examples of things you can assess using our tools. Well, then it's good to add that global data cannot provide you everything you want to know at a regional level. And that will in the end also be the case for the climate risk assessment toolbox we developed. So therefore, there is the possibility to add different data sets to the workflows. So data sets with regional characteristics. For example, you're here looking at a floods risk assessment for Sint Maarten. And we got data on health facilities, on the road network, and these kind of information really help you to prepare your emergency response plans. Where will you be able to go in situations of flooding? So you add local data to identify those most in need, to add regional characteristics of the infrastructure, and it helps you to set the adaptation priorities. So it's within your project, you have 3 phases. You really start off from the European assessments, but then there will be nearly a year to kind of tailor that assessment to your regional situation and add those kind of data. Well, the final pillar, that's what we are here for today. So that's the cascading funds. We have the funding available to fund over 50 regions. And Agneta will tell a lot more about this. Well, I presented the toolbox, I presented the framework, you will have access to that, and you will have access to the CLIMAAX help desk for technical support. For us, maybe good to know, we are funding these 50 to 60 regions, and it will also help us to fine-tune the toolbox and the regional support service. And in the end, after the 4 years that this project will run, we want to come with an advice to the European Union on how the CLIMAAX tools can be continued after project ending. So you can help us with that. Okay.
Thank you very much, Frederic. So right now there is Aneta's part. I see all your questions on the chat, but as I said, we will answer them in the last session because I believe that some of the answer might actually appear in Aneta's presentation. So Aneta is a project manager of Funding Box. She deals with cascade funding in manufacturing cluster, and also here with this project that we gathered for today. Aneta, please start the presentation.
Hello, good morning. Maybe before I share my presentation, actually, I would like to answer one of the questions which I saw on the chat. It's very common. Yes, the list of beneficiaries will be shared on the main website of the CLIMAAX. I suppose this week everything will be shared, so you can check it out.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen. Marta, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Okay, so as Frederic mentioned before, I will explain to you the more practical, let's say, part of how to apply to the CLIMAAX second open call. The second open call for regions and communities of CLIMAAX is already published. It has been published 1st of July this year, and it will be finished the 15th of October 2024. So just a quick presentation of our timeline of the second open call. So the open call has been published. Now we are presenting you how to apply to the open call. We are also having the second webinar on how to apply, which is 10th of September. So if you found any questions during reading the documents and everything, we are inviting you also to join this webinar. I suppose this webinar will be more a Q&A session so that we can answer all of your questions. The deadline is the 15th of October, and then between October and December, there is the evaluation process, which is having a few steps. So that's why it's taking us almost 3 months, because we are involving the evaluators and experts who are assessing your proposal. And the publication of the list of beneficiaries is planned for December. At the end of the year. So this is the timeline of the second open call. The main reason why we are here is answering your question, who actually we are looking for the CLIMAAX second open call. So we are looking for the public bodies, so regional and local authorities, municipalities, public agencies, and non-profit legal entities representing a local regional community. What is important is to have the mandate to be demonstrated. It can be the official document, bill, regulation, service charter decree, something which is publicly available, or you can attach this mandate to the application to show us that you can represent the public body, non-profit legal entity. And regarding the countries, your country has to be established in the EU member state and its overseas countries and territories, or Horizon Europe associated countries. And of course, you cannot be affected by any EU restrictive measures. The support which is offered through the cascade funding is, of course, the funding. So the lump sum funding per entity is up to 300,000 euro. I will explain later why we are using the wording up to. We also provide the multi-risk assessment toolbox, as coordinator mentioned before, and event participation. And you will have the possibility to be part of the community. And what activities can be funded? So mainly 3 activities, and which address 3 phases. So common methodology applicable at regional local scale in Europe, then refined regional local HR analysis and risk assessment, and then step 3, this is better regional local adaptation strategies and risk management plan. More information regarding these steps you can find in our documents, which I will mention in a moment. What are the eligibility criteria that your application is eligible? So first of all, you have to be on time, and of course the application has to be submitted through our system. Every question deserves your attention, so all of the question needs to be answered. Only 1 proposal per applicant, so we don't accept multiple proposals from 1 applicant. It has to be written in English language. The budget has to be calculated correctly. It has to have European dimension, absence of conflict of interest, which means that you cannot have the conflict of interest with any of the partners of our consortium. Your finances and clean sheet, of course, they need to be okay, and you need to accept the open call rules. As I said before, it's very important that we say that you can receive up to 300,000 euro. It means that there are some limits per country and per NUTS. So in the first open call, we already, as you already mentioned, we already evaluated and selected beneficiaries. They will be funded in a moment. That's why in the second open call, we have some limits for some countries, especially Greece here is affected. So limit per country in the second open call is a maximum of 3 selected projects per country. So we cannot select more than 3 per 1 country, and per NUTS is 2 selected projects per NUTS 2. In both open calls in Climax, it was limit per country 8 and limit per NUTS 2 4. In our documents, you can find information, as I said before, about the Greece, because we funded a few proposals from Greece. That's why this is something which affects the second open call. In the support program, we are having 22 months of the work. And as I said before, this is divided into 3 phases. We pay you the fixed lump sum, which means that we are not asking you to present strictly defined accounting documents to prove the costs incurred, but to show that the work has been done, so to show that deliverable was provided. Of course, the accounting documents needs to be collected for the authorities, but not for us for the project reason. You can see in the table that the payments are done in month 6, 16, and 22, and the last final payment, which is our delayed payment mechanism, is estimated for the November 2027. You can see the percentage of the total grant here. So the support program, as you can see, is quite a long one. Okay, how our website looks like. This is the website by which you can go to the application form. You can see all of the information here, the deadline. First of all, of course, you need to sign up to have the access to the website, and at the bottom of the website, you can see the all of the documents needed for you to read to understand better the open call requirements. So you can see the guide for applicants. So you can see here step-by-step guide with all of the application process rules, frequently asked questions. So you can see the questions which we received mainly in the first open call, privacy note, and call announcement. Okay, so on the right side, you can see the button Apply Now. When you go to the button Apply Now, you can see on the left side all of the sections which needs to be filled in. So we have basic information, applicant and project information, relevance, impact, implementation, resources are the sections which will be assessed by the evaluators. Of course, we ask you also for declaration of owner and processing of personal data, checking the boxes. In each section, you can see the introduction. In each section, we also give the links to the guide for applicants if you have any questions. And you have in the boxes information how many characters is the maximum. This asterisk means that this is mandatory to save. And after each section, please save the progress, and then you can go further. As I said before, you can apply up to 300,000 euro, but for each country there is a specific CCC, which is country correction coefficient. So you can check your CCC in the guide for applicants, and you can see how much is the maximum for your country. When you go to the resources, you can see the budget divided into personal costs, purchase costs, subcontracting, overhead. Please check it in details. If we write here that overhead means 25% of sum of the 1 and 2, it means it has to be exactly 25%. Please then check the total cost. It needs to be the sum of the total cost of all of these criteria. And regarding the subcontracting, also the question which is very common, there is no limit here for the subcontracting. Okay, so everything is done correctly, then you can see it in green. It means the section was completed. If there are some errors, then you will see here on the red one, section with errors. It means that something is not included in the application correctly, and you will have information what was not done correctly. In completed sections, they look like this. Then, if you are done with everything, if you click all of the confirmation that you provide, that you confirm and understood the information clause concerning processing of personal data and so on, then you are ready to submit your application. What is important, you cannot edit your application, so only when you are sure that your application is done, you can continue and submit your application. Then we ask to add your signature, submit, and your application is submitted. You can download your application as PDF for the future reasons. And then on the platform, you can see how it looks like with the application. If you have any questions related to anything what was said today or anything which is not clear for you, this is our mail, our help desk mail. So we are here to answer all of your doubts. So we invite you to use this email for any doubts you have regarding the Climax project. And as I said before, check your docs, check the information on the website, start your application. If you found any questions, we invite you to ask us through the help desk, but also we invite you for the second webinar in September. Then we will also answer all of your questions. So thank you very much. And now we can start the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aneta. Yes, so the first question is regarding the previous applicant for the first open call, and it sounds like this. I would like to ask if the organization applied in the first round and was not successful and wants to apply again in the second round, would it be possible to receive a detailed evaluation from the evaluators?
Yes, of course. Please ask us through the help desk. Then we will inform the people who are responsible for providing you such the answer, and you will receive the detailed evaluation.
And the email to the help desk was just written on the chat, so please use it. Thank you, Aneta. The next one was already answered by you. Will you provide the list with beneficiaries of the first open call? So just a reminder, as Aneta said, it will be probably available this week on the Climax website.
Yeah.
The next one is about presentation and recording availability. Also, as I said in the very beginning of the webinar, and I also wrote to you on chat, it will be available on Funding Box and Climax social media on LinkedIn profiles, but also it will be sent to you via email to those of you who gave the marketing consent. Okay, the next one, once again about the list of the beneficiaries. Okay, can the project finance several risks in the same area? And if our expenditure does not exceed the envelope for our country, does the project finance 100% of the budget?
Oof, that's, I try to understand. So applicants can only apply for a maximum of 300,000 of funding, so corrected for your location in the European Union. Your application can include a number of climate risks. So in that sense, when you apply and you include several risks in your application, yes, that is fine. But you cannot submit as an organization several applications. So it should just be one. And then the top maximum funding you can receive is 300,000.
Let us know on the chat if that answers your question. If not, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. Another question is from the UK potential applicant. And the question is, as the UK is currently part of the EU horizon, does local authorities, part of it, qualify for applying for the funding?
Yes, they do.
UK is now eligible for funding.
Another question is about sharing successful application. Is that possible?
Applications? No. Of course, this is confidential information. We will share just the successful beneficiaries, name of organization and so on, but of course, nothing what is confidential about them.
Are there any limitations of we apply to the second call as an energy community of the municipality? Do we have to apply as a non-profit organization in this case?
Municipalities are eligible for the open call. I don't know, Frederick, if we count them as the non-profit organization, if this is just a...
Yeah, this is always a difficult one because you mentioned you are the energy company of the municipality. So when you are really part of the municipality, and that's well written on paper and stated on paper, officially, not only by you, then it's fine, and then you're submitting as the municipality. Otherwise, you're an NGO, but then you still need to have that confirmation that it's not in the benefit of the company and well, for your financial resources, but it's really for the municipality itself.
Thank you. Another question is connected to funding about its intensity. What is supposed to be intensity of the funding?
I'm not sure about this question. If you ask how much will be paid and when, this is the table which I showed that it will be paid actually 4 times, so for 3 stages, and the last will be final payment. So the support program is 22 months, and the last payment is around 2027 November. So this is, if you ask about the intensity and your question is about that, this is the intensity.
And Aneta, this table is in the presentation, right?
Yes, it will be in the presentation, exactly. And of course, it is also in our documents.
Great. About consortium, how many partners can there be part of the consortium? Can it be all of the same country, or do you need to collaborate with different countries?
So we don't accept consortia, we accept single entities. And so it's not about collaborating with different countries.
Another question is about the relation between the first and the second open call. So can you clarify if 8 candidates from one country were selected in the first open call? Would that limit the selection of new participants from the second open call, and would they be eligible, and in what number?
In the frequently asked questions, we added at the end of the document the information which countries and which NATS has been already selected. So you can find information there, and then you can count how many will be funded and possible to fund in the second call.
If an organization has applied in the first call and has not succeeded, could it apply again with the improvement idea that organization has applied before with?
Of course, and it's a very good idea that you already applied to first open call and you learned how to write the application. You learn how to improve it, and then of course we keep the fingers crossed that the improved applications will be funded then.
Exactly, and if you would like to receive an evaluator's report, please write to us on help desk, and you will receive the evaluator's feedback on your previous application. Another question is that I want to ask if in project's own contribution is required. If yes, then in what amount?
Own financial contribution is not required, so it's fully funded.
Another question is, I would like to ask about requirements needed for the regional public bodies. What document exactly is demanded?
So if you are a municipality, we don't ask you for the mandate, but if you are the other public bodies, then we ask you for the mandate, and in the guide for applicants, you can find the definition of the mandate, and you need to include it in the application form.
Another question is, because there are phases of the project, and each phase has its financial time and resources allocated, and does that represent the amount of the work we need to put in each phase, or can we choose the phase we want to allocate more effort, so-called, to it?
So for each stage, for each phase, there is some amount of money, which means that you need to use this amount of money during this phase, and somehow it affects how much work you will do because you will use this money for the personal cost and so on. So I would say that somehow it affects the work which needs to be done. But of course, it's also individual. So if you use subcontracting or something, then some work may be done more in different phase than the money is allocated in less amount. But somehow the money which is per each phase affects the work you need to make. Yeah.
Thank you, Aneta. There is another question. It's in Polish, but I will try to translate. So it is also the question about the requirements that are standing before the regional institutions or public institutions about the document which is required for them to apply.
Exactly. This is the question I already answered, actually. So this is about the mandate. So please check the guide for applicants to check what the mandate is.
Another question, if that is possible for a newly established NGO in public benefit to apply for the second open call. The scope of activities of the NGO includes climate change. However, the organization still has no substantial experience as such.
You will get support, and there will be webinars for asking several questions, and there's technical support, but you will have to do the technical work, or you or a technical service you hire will have to do the work.
Thank you, Frederick. And another question is about eligibility criteria, because in the presentation it was mentioned that one of the eligibility criteria is to have European dimension. Can you explain what that is? Is it to have EU partners in delivery of the project, or is it something else?
It's mainly that your entity has to be established in the either EU member states, overseas countries, territories, Horizon Europe associated countries, but it's not about collaboration between your organization and something.
Aneta, is there a subcontracting limit? If the organization is applying for phase 2 and 3, but not phase 1, would be subcontracted to another association? Is that possible?
So first of all, there is no limit for subcontracting. However, you applied for everything, so not only for phase 2 and phase 3. What's important, sometimes we receive such questions if university can apply or something. So such organization cannot apply, but the people and the universities are often subcontracted by the public bodies. So in that way, it can be subcontracted. But yeah, I'm reading this question, but I'm not sure if I understand it correctly. But you have to apply for each of the stage, not only the second and the third one.
And that actually kind of answers the next question, that if the regions are expected to implement the 3 steps by themselves. So yes, they are, right, Aneta? They have to
yes.
all the 3 steps. But can you also explain a bit more each step with practical examples and clarify if the regions receive technical support from Climax, for example, for the coding that was mentioned?
Yeah, so that's a little bit related to the one of the previous questions. You will get support on coding when you have specific questions. You can download the scripts that are available, but the Climax Consortium will not do any coding for you. So you will have to do it yourself or with the technical service. And that's work in the first half year. And then in the second phase, you will be able to add your own data, to possibly use your own models, because we offer a lot and we offer things that can be applied anywhere in Europe, but you really may need to add extra detail, and that's that second and longer phase during which you can do that.
Thank you, Frederick. Another question is, can a municipality which has been selected under the path to resilience apply in the second Climax call?
Yes, it
Yes.
can, but it's important that the same activities cannot be funded. So if they do something in the path to resilience, we cannot fund the same activities in Climax.
Thank you, Aneta. Another Polish question that I would like to try to translate. So is the funding only for activities or also for plans and documentation?
It also for writing your reports, and you can use it for making plans or documentation for, say, for example, climate risk assessment or emergency plans that you want to use at the regional level.
So basically, because there are other questions connected, you can use that funding for example, building photovoltaics, but also to prepare some reports. Am I right, Frederick?
For writing reports, it's fine. And what did you mention? You mentioned...
Yes, there is another question, if that is possible to use the funding to build the photovoltaics panels.
No, the real measures you cannot fund with this budget. So you can analyze what kind of measures could be implemented to improve the situation, but the actual technical implementation is not funded.
Okay. Okay, another question is if a municipality in Bulgaria that has won funding under the Path to Resilience project is also eligible to candidate under Climax. That was already answered. And to what extent you will accept such an application form? Do you think that the activities of the two projects overlap or rather complement each other? And can we be approved as Climax candidate as well?
So I will answer this question. So first of all, when you will be beneficiary both of the Path Resilience and Climax, then we ask you for the declaration that there is no double funding. And moreover, we will ask you for information what was paid, what was funded in the Path to Resilience, so that we can check it out if this is not exactly the same activity which is in the Climax.
Another question is about the mandate document. So the mandate of the organization of the person that wrote to us is to develop climate-related multi-risk assessment and risk management plans is described in Swedish legislature. And the legislature is publicly available, but unfortunately not officially translated into English. Is the Swedish version sufficient, or should we demonstrate our mandate in any other way?
Yes, it's sufficient. We don't need translation at this stage.
Could you tell us, is there a requirement for the NGO to be registered more than a year ago and to have already performed similar activity experience?
No, it will increase your chances on success, but no, there is no need to. You can apply.
Does the conflict of interest with the Climax consortium apply to the subcontracting organization as well? Can you kindly explain what you meant by conflict of interest with the consortium members?
Yes, so subcontracting also is about the conflict of interest. So somebody or some organization which will be subcontracted cannot have the conflict of interest with the Climax consortium. What do we mean by the conflict of interest? It's a very broad topic where I think that we can spend more to hours explaining what the conflict of interest is, but mainly is some employment or some personal relations with our consortium partners. If you have such some doubts, if you have the conflict of interest, please send us email with explanation what is the possible relation, and then we will assess it quickly now, or you can apply and then it will be assessed after you applied and submit your application.
Thank you, Aneta. Two more questions. Will the toolbox or the codes behind it be available in the future in some way to applicants who will not be funded within Climax?
Yes, the toolbox and the codes are online and you can access those even if you're not funded.
And the last one for now, are mining sinkholes classified as climate change consequence?
Yeah, I find it a difficult one. I read it before you mentioned it because I need to oversee the concept of mining sinkholes, but I have the feeling that they are human induced. If not, you can either clearly motivate that they're effect of climate change in your application, or you need to get back to us with a more detailed question. To the help
Also,
desk.
you can write to our help desk and
Yeah.
then we can answer that this question. Another question about consortium. Do we have to find a consortium even if our institute have a capability of to do required analysis on our own? We are not looking for consortia in this open call, right?
No, you can do it on your own.
Okay, the next one. Is there a document that describes in detail the technical work that is required to accomplish the 3 phases? I'm asking this question. Think about the definition of the technical requirements, needs that should be defined in a subcontracting document.
Yeah, in a guide for applications, there is some minimal application explanation of the different phases and the requirements. Last week, Tuesday, there was a webinar and that's recorded in which the different phases are explained in more detail and where the technical, the platform, etc. Is demonstrated. That will be available on the CLIMAAX website and through LinkedIn. So I recommend to have a look there.
Thank you. You emphasize the participation process in the study. Can this process take the form chosen by the candidate, or are there also 2 boxes for the process of engaging local populations?
The framework contains instructions on how to engage local population, but that's more guidelines, not a toolbox. So if you have a toolbox yourself, feel free to use it and to propose it.
Thank you. I also see there are few Polish questions, but they are so much focused on details and the word that I really don't know right now, and I don't know how to translate. So maybe you can write these questions in English or write to our help desk. That will be much easier for us to answer.
Please, yeah.
And another question. I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Is there a published list of the selected candidates from the first open call and where I can find it? So this question was already answered. Alexandra, you will find the list of the previous open call beneficiaries on the CLIMAAX website, probably this week. If there are any other questions, please ask them here. We still have some minutes. If something will come to your mind later, also write to us on our help desk. Maybe I will once again write the email address of the help desk. Here it is. There's another Polish question. What is the level of financing the project? So if I'm right, Aneta, it is 100%. It is fully funded.
No, there is no. Yeah, I see that the question about the need of the funding, there is no need. We fund it 100%.
And another question appeared, can the implementation of the adaptation measures be funded through this call?
Not the actual implementation. You can evaluate the options more in an assessment phase, but you cannot fund the implementation.
Thank you. We can wait 1 minute more for some questions. There is a question about the deadline to apply Aneta?
It's 15th of October, but there is something I would like to mention. Please don't wait until the last moment, because we can observe that people are waiting, sometimes until last minutes, which is very risky. So yeah, please don't wait until the last moment. It's 15th of October, but we really encourage you to submit earlier.
Exactly. And there will be another webinar in September that you will be informed about. So that will be the second chance to actually ask some questions live. And then we really encourage you to apply. As Aneta said, not to wait till the last moment. One more question. Are applicants evaluated only based on the VI index, or are factors such as geographical distribution taken into account in this call to balance the mix of participating actors?
Yes, so vulnerability index, we also explain it in the document, in the guide for applicants. This is something which you can receive some additional points, but the evaluation is not based on the vulnerability index. You can receive additional points, but evaluation is done by the evaluators and it's based on the application.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Aneta. Can we subcontract the data gathering if our population is large?
Yeah, you can subcontract the data gathering. However, this data should be input to the climate risk assessments. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I believe that we can actually close this webinar. So let me underline once again that the recording of this webinar and also the presentation will be available on Climax and Funding Box social media channels on LinkedIn, and also to those of you who consent to receive marketing communication, you will receive an email after this webinar today or tomorrow with all the links that I just mentioned. Last question before I stop the recording. I noticed that the application form should be signed with an electronic signature, but by whom? From the official representative or from the sender of the form?
From the sender of the form. It's not the, let's say, official signature. It's that just confirming that also you submit the application. So by the sender of the form.
Thank you very much, Aneta. Thank you very much, Frederick. Thank you all for participating. I'm stopping the